Loki gets therapized. How do you decide what is the right thing to do when none of your options seem great, or even good, or even tolerable?
Oh, what to do, what to do, what to do, what to do, what to do.
Mended light. Folks, you ever been in a jam where there was no clear-cut right thing to do? Oh yeah, every day? Okay, yes, this is what adulthood is like, right? It is tough. And Alicia sometimes talks about getting decision fatigue, right? Just making choices. And it's not even like what's the right moral or ethical decision all the time. Sometimes it's just what's going to be the best strategic decision or the most enjoyable decision or the best decision for the group. And especially if you're in a leadership role, it all just kind of ends up on your desk. And by leadership, I don't necessarily mean CEO. I mean parent, right? I mean parent or friend or leader of the group or whatever it may be. So we're going to explore some answers to this through my favorite scene in the entire Loki series. If you have not been watching, a little bit of context is necessary, which means it's a tad bit spoilery, but I'm going to do my best to save as many surprises for you as I can. In Avengers Endgame, we see that if you change the past, you create a new timeline. And that the original timeline continues, but there's now an alternate branch. And these create multiple alternate realities, right? In the series Loki, there is an organization called the Time Variance Authority, known as the TVA, that is entrusted with protecting the sacred timeline. In other words, if there's a bunch of multiverses out there, a bunch of other used alternate realities, then it can be chaos. And if they find each other and they go to war, you could destroy the whole thing. And the idea is to prune those timelines so there's only just the one. A variant of Loki that is a female discovers that this is all a big sham. That the different timelines could branch off infinitely into existence forever, and people could live free. More importantly, once the timelines are created, when you prune them, millions or billions of people die. And so her whole mission, initially you see her as a terrorist and you see her as the villain. And then you realize, oh no, who you thought were the good guys are the villains, and she's trying to liberate and free and save lives. And she keeps urging our Loki, our main through-line Loki that we've been following, she keeps urging him to just burn it down. Burn it down and start from scratch. And they're trying to find a solution, and they think they found one so that all these alternate timelines can still exist and people aren't going to die. And Mobius is super excited. He's like, hey, wow, let's go get some key lime pie, you guys, and celebrate. It's gonna work out just fine. And she lays into Mobius about all the people that have died, and all the people are still dying until this is resolved. And we can't go have pie while we wait for the eggheads and the scientists to do the math so we can carry out the plan. And so she storms off. And Mobius, who was celebrating because we found a solution, but it's going to take some time, now feels bad. And Loki is going to go look for Sylvie, right? This female Loki is going to go look for her. And he finds her. She's dead-ended into the Key Lime Pie Cafe. And so it looks like she walked in there to get some pie after all. And that's where we pick up. Meanwhile, the TVA is kind of falling apart.
You've got to be kidding me.
It's on the verge of being destroyed.
I took a wrong turn. Didn't plan on coming to Pieland. Say it then.
About Mobius. He's just trying to see in the dark like the rest of us. And so we're clear. I asked for your help, and you walked away.
Just so we're clear, no, I didn't. I'm here, aren't I? Again!
You're only here because you couldn't kill him.
Let me give you some context for that. It was discovered that they thought Time Lords were controlling the flow of time, and it was actually someone called He Who Remains. And He Who Remains was, at the end of time, making sure that there was only one timeline. And Sylvie saw him as the enemy, that he was causing billions of deaths. And spoiler alert, she kills him at the end of season 1. But they come across an alternative universe version of him named Victor Timely in the 1800s, who's a scientist and a genius and a real sweetheart. And her mission she has is any variants of He Who Remains that show up, I've got to kill them. Any alternate reality versions, I have to kill them because he's so dangerous. But she comes to kill Victor Timely, and he's just this sweet, innocent guy, and she can't bring herself to do it. That's what they're referring to.
Yeah, I couldn't kill him. Couldn't do it. Timely just looked so scared. He Who Remains wasn't scared. Or maybe he was and I just didn't notice.
Some years ago, my brother was banished from Asgard and sent to Earth. And when he came back, he was different. Changed somehow. I thought it was weakness. I mocked him. Said he'd gone soft.
Soft girl she killed.
Listen, Sylvie, you spared Timely's life, and because of that, the TVA and those timelines will survive. Those people will survive. You spared their lives too.
So Loki's obviously talking about Thor. And if you remember the first Thor film, Thor goes to Earth, a brash, egotistical, warmongering god.
You're no match for the mighty!
And comes back changed from his experience with the mortals there. He comes back humbled and teachable and wanting to make peace, not war. And at the time, Loki saw him as going soft in his weakness. And now all this time later, Loki is realizing, as he's undergoing his own redemption arc, right, that Thor didn't go soft, that Thor wasn't weak, that developing compassion is a strength. And he's telling Sylvie, you didn't show weakness in sparing Timely's life. You showed strength, and it ended up saving countless lives. Now, Sylvie's going to talk about this place is awful and we should burn it to the ground. And Loki's going to refer to a handful of really decent people there who are fighting to change it and make it better.
You're putting a lot of faith in those three back there. Don't forget Docs. She's part of the TVA. All those dead branches, those dead people. That's the TVA's fault.
What about those branches that are still living? That's because of Mobius and B-15 and those guys back there, OB and Casey.
What if you're wrong? What if you are wrong to believe that this place can be any better? What if I was wrong to spare him? It would just be easier to burn this place down and start from scratch.
Sure, burn it down. Easy. Annihilating is easy. Razing things to the ground is easy. Trying to fix what's broken is hard. Hope is hard.
The real world parallels are not lost on me. It's easy just to burn it to the ground, to cut all ties, to start over. Fixing what's broken is hard. And don't get me wrong, there are times when cutting all ties is exactly the right play. There are times when walking away is exactly the right play. Because it's not going to get any better. Because you've given it everything for so long, and clearly it's time to know when to let go. But there are other times where your family is really struggling, and it would be easier to say, I'm done, instead of saying, we're going to work on our relationships. We're going to work on our connections as parents to children, as brothers to sisters, right? And keep this alive. There are times, if you look at I'm a citizen of the United States. Some people look at the United States and they see a lot of negative. Some people look at the United States and see almost exclusively positive. I'm somewhere in the middle. I love my country. I love the ideals it was built on. And like the TVA, it is a cesspool of corruption that is messing up a ton of crap. And sometimes it feels like, let's just burn it down, right? Staying and fighting to fix things is hard. He says, hope is hard. Sometimes we lose faith in organizations, institutions, relationships. And sometimes that's warranted. Faith should be lost and we should be done. And it's hard to know when to walk away and when to stay and fight for things to get better. So let's see how they resolve this conversation.
Okay, so Timely can save the TVA. Then we hope that the TVA turns into something good. Then we hope that Timely doesn't turn into He Who Remains or someone worse. That's a lot of hoping, Loki. I didn't have you down for an optimist.
This is the best option we have.
And there's the answer. They keep pointing out flaws in each other's logic or weak spots. He's proclaiming optimism and hope, and she's saying, it's a lot of hope, Loki. There's a lot that could go wrong. And I love his answer is not, because so many times in movies like, it's gonna work, or you have to believe in people. And he just rather pragmatically says, it's the best option we have. She was asking earlier in the clip, a lot of what ifs, right? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? What if I already made the wrong decision? And I relate to this so hard, I second guess my decisions. And I try and make them in good faith, and I try and employ logic and reason as well as my heart and my emotion, and I try and take in other people's opinions, and I try and explore what the research says, and then you decide. And then you're terrified, or at least I am, that you made the wrong call. A great truth of life is that you do the best you can and you live with it. Loki isn't guaranteeing her that it's all going to be okay. He's saying, weighing all the factors, this is the best option we have. How do you know you're making the right call? You don't. What you can know is whether you've done your due diligence intellectually and morally when it comes to making a decision. And that's all you can do. When people stress over whether or not they're making the right decision, or whether or not their efforts will be enough, I like to tell them all you can do is all you can do. And that's all you can do. We cannot control everything. We cannot determine the outcomes. We can literally give our best efforts and let the chips fall where they will.
So you're going to bring him behind the curtain, show him all of this, and then just send him home.
Maybe that's a good thing. We can watch him, protect him.
Interfere for good. Heard that one before.
You can't give people free will and then just walk away, Sylvie. That's not how it works. Now, for better or for worse, the timelines are free. It's up to us to protect them. It's up to us to do better than He Who Remains.
Sounds like whatever we do, we're playing God.
We are gods.
I love this turn. Loki, especially when he was a villain, justified his atrocities and justified his right to rule over the unwashed masses and to take their free will from them based on his claim to, I am a god and I'm going to sit on a throne. And now we have this wonderful arc, and they do such a good job of taking him from point A to point Z that you never think, this is a stretch, because they show you every step of how he gets there. Of when he says, we are gods, it's after a heavy sigh. This is no longer him doing this to feed his ego. It's him accepting a responsibility, and it's a heavy one. The simple fact is, if you are a parent, if you are a leader, if you are a member of the human race living on this planet, you bear a burden of responsibility to do right by other people and by this planet and its inhabitants, right? We have that responsibility. And we can assert ourselves and demand our rights and ignore the rights of other people. Or we can recognize that all rights are tied to responsibilities and square up to those responsibilities, as Loki does here. This is a very cool show, and if you know where it's going at the end of season 2, I'm gonna talk about it for just a second. So, spoiler. Skip forward 20 seconds. He does become a god sitting on a throne, and he's ruling over all of time. But the difference is, before he was a wounded, bratty, egotistical child who wanted to be validated by people worshiping him, and now he's a servant who's using his position to protect. That is so cool. So, what do you think of Loki's arc, and is this the best scene in the show? I think it's a hell of a written scene and acted. It's so good. And what are your opinions on Loki as a whole? How do you weigh the decisions you make? And what can you do to step out of second, third, fourth guessing yourself so that you just stay trapped in anxiety? What's your experience with that? What do you think of my thoughts, and what advice would you have to give? Please let us know. If you enjoyed this, we've got an entire series of Marvel videos for you to check out right here. Until next time, folks, keep shining because we need your light.